The passive voice, created and narrated by Lucia Adag. Present. In order to create the present passive, you take the third principal part and drop the RE ending. It translates to I am blanked or I am being blanked. Here are the endings: R, ris, ter, mer, mini, and enter. In the conjugation chart, you can see that the first person singular has an O where the RE has been dropped and the R ending has been added. Remember that for the third conjugation, the second person singular has an E, each one following has an I, except for the third person plural, which has a U. Also remember that for the fourth conjugation, the third person plural has a short I, U, instead of a long I, before the ending of enter. Here's a sample sentence. The verb, vulneraris, is a second person singular present passive verb, which translates to you are wounded. Imperfect. In order to create the imperfect passive, you take the third principal part and drop the RE. It translates to I was being blanked. The endings are bar, baris, bator, bamor, bamini, and bantor. Here's the conjugation chart. Here are some sample sentences. In the first, portabatur is a third person singular imperfect passive verb, translating to he, or in this case the food, was being carried. In the second sentence, dokebantur is a third person plural imperfect passive verb, which translates to they, or in this case those horses, were being led. For the future, the conjugation chart has been split in half. For the first and second conjugations, you take the third principal part, drop the RE, and add the endings that I will offer in a second. However, for the third and fourth conjugations, you take the third principal part, drop the RE, and add the present passive endings to the A and 5Es form. Here are the endings added to the first and second conjugations: bor, beris, bitor, bimor, bimini, and bintor. Here in the conjugation chart, you can see that vocare and docere of the first and second conjugations use the endings in the black box to the left. However, trahere and audire of the third and fourth conjugations use the third principal part, the RE has been dropped, and it follows the A and 5Es form with the present passive endings. The A and 5Es form is basically where the first person singular has an A where the RE has been dropped, and the rest have an E. The present passive endings, which have been added to the third and fourth conjugations, are R, ris, ter, mer, mini, and enter, as mentioned before. Here are some sample sentences. In the first, trahentur is a third person plural future passive verb, which translates to they, or in this sentence, all of the prisoners, will be dragged. In the second sentence, laudabitur is a third person singular future passive verb, which translates to he, or in this sentence, the king, will be praised. Perfect. In order to create the perfect passive, you take the fourth principal part and it translates to I had blanked. The endings are sum, es est, sumus, estis, sunt. As you can see in the conjugation chart, referring to the bullet point above, which says drop us, replace with long I for plural, it basically means that for the first, second, and third singular, you keep the fourth principal part. However, for the first, second, and third plural, you drop the us ending and you replace it with a long I in order to make it plural. Here is a sample sentence. In this sentence, vocati sumus is a first person plural perfect passive verb, which translates to we are called. Pluperfect. In order to create the pluperfect, you take the fourth principal part, and as before, for the plural, you drop the us ending and add a long I, and it translates to I had been blanked. Here are the endings: eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratus, erant. Once again, as you can see in the conjugation chart, the first, second, and third person singular are just the fourth principal part with the endings in the black box to the left. However, the first, second, and third person plural have the US dropped and replaced with a long I with the endings to the left. Here's a sample sentence. The verb visis eram is a first person singular pluperfect passive verb, which translates to I had been seen. Lastly, the future perfect. In order to create the future perfect, you take the fourth principal part. Once again, the US is dropped and a long I replaced when it is plural, and it translates to I will have been blanked. The endings used are ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritus, and erunt. Here's the conjugation chart and some sample sentences. In the first, tractus eris is a second person singular future perfect passive verb, which translates to you will have been dragged. The second sentence, portatum erit, is a third person singular future perfect passive verb, which translates to he, or in this case the present, will have been carried. Here are some practice sentences. You can either write them down or just think about it, but please translate the sentences and find the person, number, tense, voice, and mood of each highlighted verb. Here are the answers. For sentence 1, it translates to at night, a splendid dinner had been prepared by the cook in the kitchen. The verb is a third person singular pluperfect passive indicative verb. For the second sentence, many flowers were being thrown by the spectators. The verb is a third person plural imperfect passive indicative verb. And lastly, the enemies will be overpowered by our soldiers easily because they are cowardly. It is a third person plural future passive indicative verb.